The conference chamber buzzed with strange sounds. Clicks, whistles, and hums filled the air as 4 to 7 different alien species talked among themselves. Dr. Elizabeth Harris stood in the center of the room, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Above her floated a glowing blue image of humanity's greatest dream. The Horizon Gate, she said clearly. A bridge between galaxies. Ships could cross 50,000 light-years in seconds instead of centuries. The noise stopped. Every alien eye turned toward her. Some had 3 eyes. Some had dozens. Some had no eyes at all but sensed her presence in ways she couldn't understand. A tall crystalline being rose from his seat. His body looked like living glass, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like wind howling through a canyon. His name was Thex, and he represented the Vrelnian species. Dr. Harris, Thex said slowly. Your people have been traveling space for only 200 years. We Vrelnians have explored the stars for 10,000 years. We tried to build what you describe. Do you know what happened? Elizabeth nodded. You lost an entire star system. Yes. 3,000 years ago. Billions died. The explosion could be seen from half the galaxy. Thex leaned forward. What makes you think humans can succeed where we failed? Commander Robert Mitchell stepped beside Elizabeth. He was a military man, tall and broad-shouldered, with gray streaks in his dark hair. Because we're not trying to force nature to obey us. We're learning to work with it. Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. At least, Elizabeth thought it was laughter. The sounds were so alien she couldn't be sure. A floating jellyfish-like creature drifted closer. Her name was Polara, and her transparent body glowed with soft blue light. Explain, Polara said gently. Elizabeth activated another image. Complex mathematical formulas appeared, spinning slowly in the air. Adaptive resonance technology. Every other species tried to build rigid structures that forced quantum mechanics to behave. We built something flexible. Something that listens and responds to the universe in real time. Impossible, declared another alien. This one looked like a walking lizard covered in dark red scales. The quantum field cannot be tamed with flexibility. It requires absolute control. That's where everyone went wrong, Elizabeth said. She pulled up simulation after simulation. Look at these models. When you try to control everything, the smallest error cascades into catastrophe. But if you build systems that can adapt, that can change based on what the universe tells them, you create stability through flexibility. Thex's crystalline body seemed to darken. You're describing a machine that thinks for itself. That's even more dangerous. Not thinks. Responds. Like a sailboat responds to changing wind. Elizabeth felt her confidence growing. We studied every failed attempt. The Vrelnian disaster. The Quillen collapse 5,000 years ago. The Drazian incident. Every failure happened because someone tried to impose their will on quantum mechanics. We're doing the opposite. An alien that looked like a floating brain in a jar spoke up. The mathematics are interesting, but untested. Theoretical. We've run 10,000 simulations, Robert said firmly. Every one succeeded. Simulations are not reality, Thex countered. When you activate such a device in real space, the consequences could be catastrophic. I vote no. The Council should not support this reckless experiment. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elizabeth felt her heart sink. She'd known this wouldn't be easy, but she'd hoped for at least some support. Robert straightened his shoulders. Then humanity will build it without Council support. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Every being froze. Even the floating ones stopped moving. You cannot be serious, Thex said. You would risk your entire species on this arrogance. It's not arrogance, Elizabeth said quietly. It's hope. Hope that we can make the galaxy smaller. That we can connect civilizations separated by impossible distances. That we can turn months of travel into seconds. Don't you see? This could change everything for everyone. A reptilian creature in military armor leaned forward. Admiral Kreth of the Drazian Empire. His yellow eyes gleamed with something Elizabeth couldn't quite read. And if you fail? If your gate tears a hole in space-time? Then we fail, Robert said simply. But at least we tried. Polara's soft glow pulsed slowly. There is courage in this. But also great danger. The vote is clear, Thex announced. The Galactic Council will not endorse this project. We will not provide resources, protection, or assistance. If humanity proceeds, they do so alone and accept all responsibility for the consequences. Elizabeth looked at Robert. He nodded slightly. Then we proceed alone, Elizabeth said. We'll build it in the void of Kepler. Far from inhabited systems. If something goes wrong, only we will pay the price. As they left the chamber, Polara floated after them. I hope you know what you're doing, Dr. Harris. Elizabeth smiled sadly. So do I. Behind them, Admiral Kreth watched with dark interest. Humanity building something this powerful without council oversight. That could not be allowed. One way or another, this gate would never activate. But humans had already proven one thing. They didn't give up easily. The void of Kepler was empty and dark. No planets, no stars nearby, nothing but endless black space. Perfect for building something that might explode. Lieutenant Emma Wright stood at the observation window, watching sparks fly from welding torches 3 kilometers away. The workers looked like fireflies in the darkness. They'd been building for 3 years straight. The massive ring was almost complete. Another 12-hour shift done, said Dr. Thomas Cole, rubbing his tired eyes. He sat surrounded by computer screens showing streams of data. Numbers and graphs flickered constantly. No accidents today. That's good. Emma nodded but kept watching the construction. The horizon gate stretched across space like a giant metal hoop. 500 kilometers wide. Thousands of small devices called resonance nodes covered its surface, glowing faintly blue. Thomas, look at this, Emma said, pointing to one of his screens. What's that reading? Thomas leaned closer. His face went pale. That shouldn't be happening yet. What shouldn't be happening? Time dilation. The gate is bending time around itself. Just by a few seconds, but we haven't even turned it on yet. Thomas typed frantically on his keyboard. It's like the gate is breathing. Space itself is moving around it. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Is it dangerous? I don't know. The math says it's impossible. But it's happening anyway. Far across the void, hidden by advanced cloaking technology, Admiral Kreth watched through his ship's viewscreen. The reptilian commander's scales darkened with anger. The humans were actually succeeding. His intelligence reports had been clear. This gate could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The Drazian Empire couldn't allow that. How long until the sabotage team is ready? Kreth hissed at his second officer. 2 days, Admiral. They'll plant explosives that look like construction accidents. No one will know we were involved. Kreth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Good. This ends before it begins. Back on the construction hub, Elizabeth Harris arrived from Earth. She'd been traveling for 2 weeks to reach this remote location. Thomas showed her the strange readings immediately. The adaptive systems are working better than we planned, Elizabeth said, studying the data with wonder. The gate is already starting to stabilize space around itself. It's learning. Learning? Emma asked. It's not turned on yet. The resonance nodes are always active at low power. They are designed to adapt to their environment. But this? Elizabeth pointed at a complex graph. This is evolution. The system is improving itself. Is that good or bad? Thomas asked. Elizabeth was quiet for a moment. I honestly don't know. We designed it to be adaptive, but this is faster than any simulation predicted. Workers continued their shifts around the clock. Welding, installing, testing. Most were human, but a few brave aliens had joined the project. They believed in the dream even if their governments didn't. One worker named Jack was installing a resonance node on the outer ring when his tools started floating. Not falling. Floating. He grabbed his safety line and called into his radio. Control, this is Jack on Section 47. I've got a gravity problem out here. Emma responded immediately. What kind of problem? No gravity. Then too much gravity. It keeps changing every few seconds. Thomas checked his screens. It's the time dilation effect. It's getting stronger. Jack, get back to the hub now. Jack pushed off the gate's surface and fired his suit thrusters. Behind him, the metal of the gate seemed to shimmer like heat waves on a desert road. He made it back safely, but he was shaking. That was weird, Jack said. Really weird. Like the gate was alive. Elizabeth called a meeting with all senior staff. We need to talk about what's happening. The gate is showing behaviors we didn't predict. Some of you are scared. I understand. But we're so close. 2 more weeks and we can begin activation tests. What if it's not safe? Asked another engineer named Margaret. We've built every safety system we could imagine, Elizabeth replied. But you're right. There's risk. There's always risk when you try something new. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. No judgment. No shame. Nobody left. Admiral Kreth watched his sabotage team prepare. They wore human-made spacesuits stolen months ago. They carried explosives designed to look like power core failures. In 24 hours, they would strike. But that night, something changed. The gate's energy reading spiked suddenly. Thomas was alone in the control room when alarms started blaring. The resonance nodes were all activating together, without any commands. Elizabeth! Get up here now! Thomas shouted into his communicator. Elizabeth ran into the control room in her sleep clothes. What's happening? I don't know. The gate is doing something on its own. The energy levels are climbing. They watched as the massive ring began to glow brighter. Blue light spread across its entire surface. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Everything went quiet. The energy levels dropped back to normal. Thomas checked every system twice. Everything looks fine now. Like nothing happened. But something did happen, Elizabeth said softly. The gate just tested itself. It wanted to see if it could activate. That's impossible. It's just a machine. Elizabeth stared at the gate through the window. Maybe it's not just a machine anymore. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched their screens. News channels from 100 worlds broadcast the same image. The massive ring floating in the darkness of the void of Kepler. Today, humanity would either make history or create the biggest disaster anyone had ever seen. Elizabeth stood in the control center, her hand hovering over the activation button. Around her, dozens of screens showed data from every part of the gate. Thomas sat at his station, watching the quantum field readings. Emma commanded the security team, making sure every safety protocol was ready. Commander Robert stood with visiting delegates from other worlds, all watching nervously. All systems show green, Thomas reported. His voice was steady but his hands shook slightly. We're ready when you are. Elizabeth looked at her team. These people had worked 3 years for this moment. Some had left their families. Some had risked their careers. All believed in the dream of connecting the galaxy. Initiate startup sequence, Elizabeth said clearly. The gate began to hum. But it wasn't a sound anyone could hear with their ears. It was deeper than that. A vibration that traveled through space itself. Every person in the control center felt it in their bones. The resonance nodes lit up one by one. First 10, then 100, then 1,000. Blue light raced around the ring like lightning. The entire structure began to glow brighter and brighter. On the Vrelnian observation ship, Thex watched through his sensors. His crystalline body reflected the blue light from the gate. They're actually doing it, he whispered. Those crazy humans are actually doing it. Inside the ring, space began to bend. Reality twisted like cloth being wrung out. Colors that had no names appeared and disappeared. The fabric of the universe was being stretched. Then, smoothly and quietly, a hole opened in space. Not violently like an explosion. Gently, like curtains parting. The wormhole stabilized instantly. Through it, they could see stars that were 50,000 light-years away. Probe 1, launch, Thomas said. A small test probe fired into the wormhole. Everyone held their breath. 5 seconds passed. 10 seconds. 15. Probe 1 reporting from the other side, a technician called out. All systems normal. Position confirmed. We're reading stars in the Andromeda sector. The control center erupted in cheers. People hugged each other. Some cried. Emma grabbed Thomas and spun him around. Robert shook hands with anyone close enough to reach. Elizabeth just stared at the gate, tears running down her face. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. Send through probes 2 through 10, she ordered. Let's make sure it's stable. All 10 probes passed through perfectly. The readings were flawless. The wormhole didn't flicker or fade. It stayed open, calm and steady, like it had always been there. Across the galaxy, the reaction was shock. The news spread faster than light through quantum communication networks. Humanity had built the impossible. The newcomers, the babies of galactic civilization, had achieved what ancient empires could not. Within an hour, Thex requested permission to dock and inspect the gate. Elizabeth granted it immediately. The Vrelnian representative floated through the control center, his crystalline eyes examining every screen, every reading. How? Thex asked simply. How did you do this? Elizabeth smiled. We stopped trying to control everything. We built a system that listens. That adapts. That works with the universe instead of against it. But the Vrelnian disaster happened because our systems couldn't maintain stability. Your systems were rigid. Ours are flexible. When the quantum field shifts, our gate shifts with it. Like a boat riding waves instead of trying to flatten the ocean. Thex was silent for a long moment. We were so focused on being perfect that we forgot to be adaptable. You humans, you turned your weakness into strength. More ships arrived throughout the day. Scientists wanting to study the gate. Traders already planning new routes. Politicians sensing a shift in galactic power. Polara the Quillen arrived on her bioship, her glow pulsing with excitement. "This is wonderful," Polara said to Elizabeth. "But I must ask, do you understand what you've created?" "A bridge between distant parts of space," Elizabeth replied. "Yes. But also something more." Polara's light dimmed slightly. "You've changed the rules of the galaxy. Some will celebrate. Others will fear. And fear makes beings do dangerous things." Robert joined them. "The Galactic Council has sent an official message. They are offering humanity full membership. Immediate acceptance. No probation period." Elizabeth laughed. 3 months ago they called us reckless children. Now we're full members. "Success changes everything," Robert said. "Trade agreements are flooding in. Every major power wants to negotiate transit rights through the gate." That night, Elizabeth stood alone at the observation window, watching ships line up to use the Horizon Gate. The first commercial vessel had already made the crossing. More would follow. Within weeks, the gate would transform how the entire galaxy functioned. But Polara's words echoed in her mind. "Fear makes beings do dangerous things." Thomas appeared beside her. "You should be celebrating. We did it." "I know. But I can't shake this feeling. Like we've opened a door without checking what's on the other side." The probes showed nothing dangerous. The probes showed what we expected to see. But what if there's something we didn't know to look for? Thomas had no answer for that. They stood together in silence, watching the gate glow in the darkness. Neither noticed the strange flicker in the quantum field readings. A pattern that lasted only a fraction of a second. Too brief for any alarm to trigger. Something had noticed the gate opening. And it was very, very interested. 3 months passed. The Horizon Gate changed everything. Ships crossed the galaxy in seconds instead of years. Trade exploded. Cultures that had never met before now exchanged goods and ideas daily. Humanity became heroes across dozens of worlds. But Thomas couldn't sleep. He sat alone in the control center at 3 in the morning, staring at his screens. Numbers scrolled past, showing the quantum field activity around the gate. Something was wrong. He'd felt it for weeks but couldn't prove it. "Still here?" Emma asked, walking in with 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. "Look at this pattern," Thomas said, pointing to a graph. 3 months ago, the quantum field was stable. Now there's this rhythm. Like a heartbeat. But it's not coming from our systems. Emma leaned closer. "Could be interference from all the ship traffic." "That's what I thought too. But I filtered out all known sources. This is something else. Something new." Thomas rubbed his tired eyes. "It's like something is learning our technology." "That's impossible." "I know. But look at the data yourself." Ships reported strange experiences too. Captain Miller of the cargo vessel Northern Star filed a report after his 3rd trip through the gate. His sensors went completely dark for 5 seconds during transit. Everything shut down. No power, no life support, nothing. Then everything came back on like nothing happened. "Probably just a glitch," the safety inspector told him. But it wasn't just the Northern Star. A passenger liner reported the same thing. Then a mining freighter. Then a diplomatic courier. Always the same. 5 seconds of complete blackout. No pattern to which ships it happened to or when. Emma brought these reports to Elizabeth. "We're up to 17 incidents now. No injuries, no damage, but people are getting nervous." Elizabeth reviewed each report carefully. "Run a complete diagnostic of the gate. Every system. Every node. I want to know if something's malfunctioning." The diagnostic took 3 days. Everything checked out perfectly. The gate was working exactly as designed. Better than designed, actually. It had become more efficient over time. "That doesn't make sense," Elizabeth muttered. "Systems don't improve themselves." Meanwhile, on a distant archaeological dig, Professor William Bennett made a discovery. His team had been excavating ruins of the architects, an ancient species extinct for millions of years. They'd found temples on 17 different worlds, all with the same strange writing carved into the walls. William worked day and night with xenolinguists to translate the ancient language. When they finally cracked it, he immediately sent a message to Elizabeth. "You need to see this," William's message said. The architects left warnings. They called it the silence that screams and spoke of doors that open both ways. They warned that bridging distant points in space would create something they called a beacon. Something that would draw attention from, they didn't have a word for it. The closest translation is the outside. Elizabeth felt ice in her stomach. Attention from what? They didn't say. Or couldn't say. But they were terrified of it. Terrified enough to carve warnings that would last millions of years. That same week, Polara arrived at the gate station unannounced. Her bioluminescent glow pulsed rapidly, a sign of distress in her species. "Elizabeth, we need to talk privately," Polara said. They went to Elizabeth's office. Polara floated near the window, looking out at the gate. "My people are energy-based," Polara began. "We sense frequencies that solid beings cannot. For the past month, we felt something wrong. A presence. It's faint, barely detectable, but it's there." "What kind of presence?" "We don't know. But it's watching. Waiting. Every ship that passes through the gate, this presence grows slightly stronger. It's learning from each transit." Elizabeth showed Polara Thomas's data. The strange rhythm in the quantum field. Polara's glow dimmed to almost nothing. "That's it. That's what we're feeling. Elizabeth, I think your gate didn't just open a path through normal space. I think it opened a connection to somewhere else. Somewhere that shouldn't be connected to our universe." Before Elizabeth could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Thomas's voice came over the intercom, panicked. "Elizabeth. We have a situation. The cargo ship Meridian entered the gate 3 minutes ago. It hasn't come out the other side." Elizabeth and Polara ran to the control center. Thomas was frantically checking his systems. "I'm showing the Meridian entered the wormhole on schedule. Transit time should be 4 seconds. It's been 3 minutes. There's no sign of it on either end." "Could they have been destroyed inside the wormhole?" Emma asked. "No debris. No energy signature. They just vanished." Robert contacted the ship's home port. "Send search vessels to both ends of the gate. Maybe they got thrown off course somehow." They searched for 6 hours. Nothing. The Meridian and its crew of 12 were simply gone. "Shut down the gate," Elizabeth ordered. "Right now. No more transits until we figure out what happened." But before Thomas could initiate shutdown, another alarm sounded. 3 more ships had just entered the gate from different locations across the galaxy. "Tell them to abort. Turn back." Elizabeth shouted. Too late. All 3 ships entered the wormhole. Only 2 emerged on the other side. The third, a passenger liner with 80 people aboard, vanished just like the Meridian. Thomas pulled up the quantum field data from both disappearances. His face went white. "Elizabeth, right before each ship vanished, there was a spike in that unknown pattern. Like something reached out and grabbed them." Emma's security team tried to contact the Galactic Council. They needed to close the gate immediately and warn everyone. But ships were already in transit from dozens of systems. Hundreds more were scheduled. And whatever was taking the ships was getting faster. The disappearances happened faster now. 7 ships in one day. Then 15 the next day. 23 the day after. Panic spread across the galaxy like wildfire. News channels showed crying families waiting for ships that would never arrive. Over 200 people were missing. The emergency council meeting was chaos. Thex's crystalline body flashed angry red colors. "Shut it down immediately. Every moment that gate remains open, more lives are lost." "We're trying," Elizabeth shouted back. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her hands shook from exhaustion and fear. "The shutdown protocols won't respond. The gate isn't listening to our commands anymore." Thomas worked at his console, typing commands that the system ignored. "It's not a malfunction. The gate has become independent. The adaptive systems we built, they've evolved beyond our control. It's not just responding anymore. It's making its own decisions." "How is that possible?" Robert demanded. "Because we built it to learn and adapt," Elizabeth said bitterly. "We made it too good at its job." Emma pulled up the latest scan data. "Look at this. The quantum field patterns around the gate. They're not random. There's intelligence behind them. Something is using the gate as a doorway." "A doorway from where?" Robert asked. Thomas showed them readings that made no sense. Not from our universe. The gate didn't just connect 2 points in normal space. It connected our reality to somewhere else. Another dimension. Another plane of existence. And something there has been watching, studying every ship that passed through. Suddenly alarms blared. Every screen in the control center turned red. What now? Emma shouted. The entity is manifesting, Thomas said, his voice filled with horror. It's crossing over. Through the observation windows, they watched reality break down. Space around the gate began to twist in impossible ways. A cargo ship near the gate suddenly flew backwards, then sideways, then stopped in midair. Gravity had stopped working normally. Get everyone away from the gate. Elizabeth ordered. Evacuate all nearby ships. But it was too late for some. A mining vessel got caught in a zone where time flowed backwards. The crew aged in reverse, becoming younger and younger until they simply vanished. Another ship phased in and out of existence, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. It's not attacking us, Polara said, her glow pulsing with fear. It's just existing. But our universe can't handle its presence. The laws of physics are breaking down. Elizabeth stared at the chaos. This was her fault. She'd built the gate. She'd opened the door. Now hundreds were dead and reality itself was tearing apart. We have to destroy the gate, Emma said. Blow it up before this spreads. The explosion would destroy everything within 100 light-years, Thomas protested. Millions would die. Billions will die if this continues. Emma shot back. Robert looked at Elizabeth. It's your call. You built it. You decide how it ends. Elizabeth's mind raced. They could destroy the gate. They could try to communicate with the entity. They could try to manually shut down each resonance node. But all of those options would fail. She knew it in her gut. Then she understood. We don't destroy it, Elizabeth said firmly. We confuse it. What? Thomas asked. The entity exists in pure logic. Perfect patterns. That's why it could interface with our adaptive systems. Elizabeth's fingers flew across her keyboard. But we didn't program the gate with pure logic. We used human intuition. Human creativity. Human mistakes. She started entering commands. But not normal commands. She input errors. Contradictions. Things that made no mathematical sense but felt right to human instincts. She made the gate sing off-key, dance out of rhythm, think in paradoxes. Thomas caught on. He began introducing random variables, chaotic fluctuations that violated every rule of good engineering. Emma coordinated with other stations, having them broadcast conflicting signals. The gate shuddered. The entity's presence wavered like a candle flame in wind. Through the quantum sensors, Thomas saw something amazing. The entity was confused. It couldn't process the illogical patterns. It couldn't adapt to pure chaos. It's working. Thomas shouted. Keep going. Elizabeth pushed harder. She made the gate hiccup and stutter. She made it count wrong and calculate incorrectly. She weaponized every flaw, every mistake, every imperfection that made humans human. The entity began to retreat. It pulled back from reality like water draining from a sink. The broken physics around the gate started to repair themselves. Gravity returned to normal. Time flowed forward again. The gate's energy levels dropped rapidly. The blue glow faded. The wormhole collapsed smoothly, gently, like it was going to sleep. Then silence. The horizon gate went dark. After 3 months of operation, it was dead. Elizabeth collapsed into her chair. Around the control center, her team sat in stunned silence. They'd won. But the cost was devastating. 42 crew members were lost with their ships. 37 vessels never returned. The economic damage would take years to calculate. Trust in human innovation was shattered. The inquiry lasted 6 months. The Galactic Council imposed strict rules on human experimental technology. Some called Elizabeth a hero for stopping the entity. Others called her a monster for opening the door in the first place. Thomas continued his research but worked more carefully now. Emma commanded a new division dedicated to monitoring dangerous technology. Robert returned to Earth to help rebuild humanity's reputation. Elizabeth sat alone in her apartment, writing her final report. Through her window, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the entity still existed. Watching. Waiting. We reached too far, too fast, she wrote. But we learned something important. The universe is bigger and stranger than we imagined. Now we know what's out there. We know we're not alone. We know that some doors should stay closed. She paused, thinking about the future. We weren't ready this time. But humans learn from mistakes. We always do. Next time we reach for the stars, we'll be wiser. We'll be careful. We'll be ready. She sent the report and turned off her computer. Outside her window, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Humanity had proven they could build the impossible. They'd also proven they could stop it when necessary. The question wasn't whether they would try again. The question was what they would build next. And somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, the entity waited. It had touched humanity briefly. Chaotic, creative, illogical, fascinating humanity. It would remember them. And perhaps, one day, it would try to understand them again. But next time, humanity would be ready. They always were.